Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering Krusty Dogs and the wreck of the Mauna Loa. These are two strangely nostalgic episodes for me. I feel like that's the best way to describe it. I remember both pretty well, which I know is probably surprising for the latter at least, but I don't know, I just remember them. I wish I could elaborate on that, but I really can't, especially not before getting into the proper reviews. So I guess now would be a good time to say, as always, thank you all for tuning in today. I'm so glad that you're here. And as a reminder, I'm going to have a little bit to say about my recently reaching 3,000 subscribers at the end of the video in the closing thoughts, so be on the lookout for that. And with that, let's just get right into it. Like I said in the beginning, Krusty Dogs is a rather nostalgic episode for me, which is a little bit strange, but it is what it is. I just remember seeing reruns of this episode pretty often, and considering that I was not even 10 when it originally aired, yeah, it being nostalgic maybe makes a bit of sense. I also have a soft spot for this episode because of it was the basis of an old Pam Tree video, and God, that's weird to say that it's old now because I literally watched it when it came out. Fuck, that shit is 7 years old now. Man. Well, anyway, where was I? Right. So, y'all already know that I love a good Krusty Krab business practices plot, so as long as the episode brings the enjoyment, things should be smooth sailing from here. Let's put that theory to the test. The beginning of Krusty Dogs is not particularly funny, but it is enjoyable. SpongeBob's way of making Krabby Patties is fun to watch, and then when he starts playing around with the leftover meat, that part is pretty cute. So it's a pretty decent beginning overall, and gets this plot rolling when SpongeBob comes up with the idea of putting Krabby Patty meat in a hot dog shape. Honestly, SpongeBob is not just a business genius, but a sustainability genius for that one, and even Mr. Krabs has to acknowledge it. And it's always fun to see Mr. Krabs do his thing and exceedingly upcharge his food, and it's even more entertaining when the Bikini Bottom populace just jumps right on board with it. I gotta say that I'm pulled out of my immersion when we get a good look at the price of Krabby Patties, because a burger for $2? Please sign me up right now. They're like 5 times that price. Good ol' inflation, am I right? Alright, let me stop before this becomes a proper tangent. So this episode is very similar to Botsy Boots to me, maybe with a hint of the Krusty Sponge as well, but I don't think that these similarities are glaring or anything, and they certainly aren't a problem. It is, of course, predictable that the Krusty Dogs overtake the Krabby Patties in popularity, and this, also predictably, makes SpongeBob very upset. See, if you think about it, in an autistic reading, this could be yet another piece of evidence for autistic SpongeBob. Just food for thought. Okay, but to get to the point of what I was saying, this predictability is hardly an issue because even if I know what's going to happen, it's all done in a very enjoyable way. I'm thinking of SpongeBob's dramatics coming through with their hilarity yet again, and once again, Mr. Krabs proves to be quite the short-sighted businessman, because why would you want to decrease your menu size, especially when you're still ultimately known for the thing you're cutting out of the menu? Just jumping the gun on that one. This is all faux irritation, of course. I just think it's funny to point these things out. I love how SpongeBob actually goes to Squidward for once because SpongeBob is the one who is unsatisfied with the way that the Krusty Krab is operating. It's a wonderful inversion of the typical trope. And I liked seeing SpongeBob at least try to stand up for himself a little bit here. Yeah, it was a bit more indirect, but it still counts to me. And then I loved SpongeBob's plotting to get the Krusty Dogs off the menu. Like, it's fun to see him use those Troll Bob powers for good. Well, I mean, they're always used for good. Kind of. Okay. They're used for my entertainment, so that's basically the same thing if you think about it. Anyway, when Squidward gets in on the plotting, it just gets better and better. I love to see these two work together like this in this mutually cooperative capacity. Not one person, namely SpongeBob, putting in all the work and thought and the other benefiting from it. The way that SpongeBob resorts to borderline violent action to get what he wants, now that's what I'm talking about. Way to go to the Satsuki Kiryuin School of Ambition, SpongeBob. Yes, I've seen Kill la Kill. Anyway, the episode ends, of course, with the status quo returning since SpongeBob and Squidward ensured nobody would want to eat a Krusty Dog again by blowing up a Krusty Dog in a customer's face. And of course, while Mr. Krabs generally ends up unscathed, poor Squidward doesn't get out of this episode so lucky as he goes back to standing outside of the Krusty Krab in a food costume, getting kicked by a rather classist woman. Don't worry, Squidward, I know that the reason that you're a loser is not because you didn't receive a good enough education. It's because you're you. You guys can't see it, but I'm making a heart symbol with my hands to express my genuineness. Krusty Dogs was a fun little episode filled with all sorts of things that I love, from the kind of plot it is, to Squidward and SpongeBob working together, to SpongeBob being a little bit mischievous. Mischievous? How do you actually say that word? I feel like I always say it wrong. Anyway, and a lot bit ambitious, to tons of hilarious jokes. I don't think I'd call this episode underrated, but like many episodes in this season, it's not talked about a lot. And yeah, that's not surprising. People frequently like to focus on the bad of season 7 rather than any of the good, so I'd like to see more people discuss this episode now, please and thank you. Anyway, bringing it all together, this episode is being put in my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9.3 out of 10. Next up, The Wreck of the Mauna Loa. This isn't an episode that I think about very often, but like I said in the introduction, I remember it quite well, and it is also nostalgic. For this episode specifically, there's a certain, comfort aspect to this episode that is very much connected to the nostalgia of it, and in general, I've got just a soft spot for this one. I think its plot is pretty interesting and a bit different than what we often get in this show. I feel like this episode has some heavy Legends of Bikini Bottom vibes, as well as 2,000 patties, or 20,000 patties under the sea vibes. That's just what it feels like to me. The Wreck of the Mauna Loa begins with SpongeBob and Patrick playing around yet again. Man, that's kind of been a common starting scene lately. And to be clear, there's no problem at all with that. Just like many of these other episodes that have started with this kind of scene, SpongeBob and Patrick's playing ends with them coming across the thing that kicks off the real plot of the episode. And in this case, it's an old abandoned boat. Shipwreck, really. And they decide to make the shipwreck their new play fort, which is cute. And them playing pirates is also pretty cute. This episode really leans into the child side of the child-adult line, which, while that is something I usually don't like, this episode actually does it in a way that appeals to me. SpongeBob and Patrick want to make their boat their secret hideout, but they, as you might expect, are not very good at keeping it a secret. I like that this episode touches on Mr. Krabs' pirate side, since that's not something that gets the focus all too often. Now, I mean, that's not the only part of his character utilized here, since his greedy side is also on full display, considering that he knows about the Mauna Loa because of its lost treasure, and, everything else he does in this episode. But I'm also counting it as a pirate thing because I can. Squidward finding every excuse not to help Mr. Krabs with finding this shipwreck is pretty funny too. I just love Roger Bumpus's delivery on that line. I think this part of the episode is again a good display of Mr. Krabs' and Squidward's dynamic, how they're on a bit more relatively equal terms than Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob, with their implied longer friendship and Squidward's general uncaring attitude towards Mr. Krabs' authority. I'm not sure if I've ever spelled out their dynamic like that before. Man, 7 seasons in and I'm still finding new things to say about this show. I love it. Honestly, this episode is just really funny, so I'm not going to hit on every joke, but just know that I think that this one is hilarious, and there's lots of good jokes and gags here. I also like how this episode is almost like a callback to ARG, but in a way, or in a very loose sense. Mr. Krabs finds the hideout with ease thanks to Patrick's big-ass sign, and this is shown in a scene with a great display of rapid-fire comedy. But as Mr. Krabs looks around the wreckage, we get the reveal that what SpongeBob and Patrick found isn't actually the wreck of the Mauna Loa, but rather the wreck of the Mauna Loa amusement park ride. That's a pretty fun twist, if you ask me. I also like how this fact is revealed relatively early on in the episode, about halfway through, and so the plot makes a shift to the left, turning into a Mr. Krabs money-making plot. Just like in Krabby Land, Mr. Krabs forgoes safety precautions for some quick cash, using this abandoned ride to make some money. Poor SpongeBob and Patrick lose their hideout because of this, which I'm choosing to take as a metaphor for how capitalism sucks out whimsy and joy from one's life and takes and takes and takes until there is nothing left. I think that was pretty tame for me, to be honest. But anyway, not only do SpongeBob and Patrick lose their hideout, but because Mr. Krabs deprioritized safety, they get seriously injured by the ride too, along with a bunch of other people. And y'all know that I love random explosions and chaos, so this scene of shit hitting the fan is exactly what I love to see. The whole ride breaks free, launching it up in the air and sending it careening towards the ground. And in the aftermath, Mr. Krabs gets his ass handed to him on a silver platter, so it's just wins after wins for me. This is very cathartic to watch. Also cathartic is seeing SpongeBob and Patrick get a win of their own at the end, as they find a new secret hideout, an even better one than before, the real wreck of the Mauna Loa. However, based on what Patrick says, yet another funny joke, this hideout probably won't stay secret for very long. There's not really much for me to say about the wreck of the Mauna Loa. It's not an especially outstanding episode, but I do really like it, and I've got no problems with it. I don't think it has that wow factor required of an amazing tier episode. I don't know, just something feels missing. But this episode is still great. As in, it's great tier, where it's coming in with a score of 8.9 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this video with some closing thoughts of mine. So, I'll be honest, neither of these episodes inspire much in the way of closing thoughts from me, so why don't I skip the pretense and move on to what I'd mentioned in the introduction. So, like y'all know by now, I recently hit 3,000 subscribers. If you've been around for a while, you might remember that I had a 300 subscriber special. You see where I'm going with this? That's right, I'm doing yet another round of questions and answers. I'll be putting out a video asking for questions on July 13th, which by my calculations should be tomorrow. At least tomorrow when this video comes out. So yeah, I just wanted to give a heads up on that. And now I'll just go ahead and close things out here, and I'll see y'all in the next review.